This is Reset. I'm Sasha-Ann Simons. What is the value of telling the world your story in your own words? Well, for legendary playwright August Wilson, that's a priceless feat. He wrote the play How I Learned What I Learned before he died in 2005. And now that script's coming to life in a one-man show at the Broadway Playhouse in Water Tower Place. In a way, it's like if William Shakespeare wrote a play about being Shakespeare. At least that's how Chicago actor Harry Lennix sees it. Lennix plays August Wilson in the show, and you may know the actor from his role as Harold Cooper on NBC's The Blacklist. How I Learned What I Learned is on a limited run until May 5th, and actor Harry Lennix is in the studio with us now. Welcome to Reset.
Good to be with you, Sasha.
Great to see you. So the show just opened this weekend. How does it feel? It's out. It's on stage.
It opened yesterday, and last night I'm still recovering.
How'd it go?
I thought it went very well. Of course, I'm not very objective about it. I'm the one guy who probably shouldn't answer that question, but it felt great. The audience was certainly very receptive, and honestly, I am not that familiar with the history of this play. I didn't know that it was really in existence until a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But August did it for himself in 2003, as you noted. It's very rarely been done since then. It's a handful of productions, but I sometimes wonder if he intended it to be performed by anybody but himself.
Yeah, well, you were handpicked from the theater, right?
Yes.
Is that when you sort of became aware that this script existed?
That's exactly correct, yes. Erica Radcliffe, the artistic director, asked me to do it maybe a year and a half ago. And originally it was going to be directed by one of the founders of Congo Square Theater Company, which is, responsible here. And in addition, or in collaboration with the Goodman Theater, my longtime colleagues and comrades, and the Broadway Playhouse. So it's been a great collaboration. They did inform me about the existence of this play, and they have enabled its production.
So I gave a bit of a taste in the intro, Harry, but for people who are unfamiliar, tell us about August Wilson's play, How I Learned What I Learned, and the story that it's telling.
Yes, it's quite interesting. I have a different sort of definition for play. There's a difference between a play and theater. It all falls under in the category of theater. It's a theatrical kind of recital, almost in a way. It's in some sense, it feels almost like a set, like a routine, like a stand-up monologue.
Ah, okay.
But of course, it's structured along a group of characters who kind of create a spine for the beginning and the middle and the end. But it's very episodic. It's almost like, it's really a coming-of-age story. Set in his own words, and you see him as young, mostly as a 20-year-old in Pittsburgh, and then he gets a little bit outside of that area, but it really is how you get to meet these people who inform the figures that he created in his plays. So if you're familiar with the play, King Hedley II, Hedley himself is an interesting guy. Gabriel in Two Trains Running is another interesting figure you could see drawn from Elmore in a couple of the plays, King Hedley II, for example. So I think we really kind of see prototypes of these people who became famous in their own right, who are fictionalized versions of these people he's creating here.
Yeah, it's one thing for an actor to step into a character that is fictional. You make it your own, put your own flavor on it, and voila, right? You're playing a real-life person who you knew and spent time with when he was still alive. I mean, what was that like, embodying his character?
Right. So I think the first thing, one of the reasons I was a little sort of skeptical about my casting in is I'm nothing physically like August Wilson. I mean, he's a fair-skinned black guy. I guess I have that in common with him, but he's a lot shorter and 20 years older and all of these things. But I'm about the age that he was when we lost him in 2005 now. So to that extent of being a roughly 60-year-old guy who is, who has lived some life and grew up in an inner city in a Rust Belt town, I think we have those things in common.
Yeah.
That's more internal than external. And so my approach, really, my method was really to deal with creating these other characters far more so than creating August Wilson. I'm not going to be fooling anybody into thinking that August is, come back or that I'm channeling him. I don't think people really knew him. It's not like playing, say, Sidney Poitier or some public figure in that sense. He was a man of letters, so a lot of people didn't really see him. I mean, you could see interviews with him.
Yeah.
But I think he spoke through his writing and through his characters. And I think that he would have written this had he thought that it would have other iterations for an actor to play these other people. So he's one of the characters that I play in this, but I'm mostly using my own personality and my own commonalities with his story as the template from which, I go.
So prepping for this one-man show sounds like it was pretty involved. I mean, you even likened it a moment ago to doing stand-up. Is that different for you than when you're prepping for, say, the other play that you're in right now, which I'll get to in just a moment, because you're doing not just one show, but you're doing two.
I figure why not? Get it all in.
Get it all in at once.
It's been 20 years since I was on a stage in Chicago. So
and now we're like all Harry all the time.
That's it.
So is that prep different?
No. Yes and no. Yes and no. Obviously, everything is different because it's different words and it's different demands. Like in the case of what I'm doing at Steppenwolf, Purpose, that play, it's one character.
Yeah.
Here, I'm playing multiple characters. But I'm really just sort of drawing from people that I know and sort of doing impersonations, as it were, of them, because I did meet a couple of the people that are referenced in this play, but they were, different than the way they are presented here. So that is, you still have to learn the lines. That's really a great deal of it. You have to learn the blocking. You have to learn the kind of structure of it so that you know where you're going, how you're going to get there, when you can try to read the audience and try to read your own performance and figure out when you can take your foot off of the accelerator, when you can coast, when you can accelerate. So it's really a kind of gauging of reading the room. And so to that extent, a live performance is always sort of like that. When to pick up the pace, when to let it go, when to get soft, when to get loud. When, for example, in this case, I have a microphone. At the Steppenwolf, we do not. So, I know that I can actually get quite soft and play with levels in that way, although in traditional theatrical productions, you don't have that luxury or that cheat, depending on who you're asking about that.
That's interesting. I did see you in action a few weeks ago at Steppenwolf in Purpose. It's like stellar job.
Thank you.
And for those listening, we're talking about the latest play directed by Felicia Rashad. But you are taking a break from that to focus for these 2 weeks on this August Wilson play. And I think a lot of people are familiar with August Wilson's work. We've got movies like Fences and Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, for instance. I mean, both adapted from his plays. He's been described as one of the most important Black voices in theater. Who would you say he was to you, though, Harry? Because this is one of several of his plays you've worked on.
Yes, I've had the great honor of doing 4 of his plays. This would be 5, technically, if this is considered a play. Again, I think that we can go back and forth on that a little bit. That's right.
Yeah.
I am. To me, August Wilson was a poet, really, a dramatic poet, like Homer, like somebody who told epic tales, created mythological-sized characters and figures, almost operatic in their size and scale, their import, as it were. I think he is not just the most important Black playwright of the 20th century, but the most important American playwright of the 20th century. Nobody achieved this at this level that had this kind of agenda and actually accomplished this in this way. People had other things that they were trying to do. I'm not certainly, but in the second half of the 20th century, I think it would be a fairly easy case to make. But I also knew him as a guy. I knew him as a kind of irascible, difficult to please in some ways in terms of approaching some of these characters, but in other ways, a very soft touch. Somebody who, when you were meeting his standard, that he let you know just by the nod of his head, just by the, he would say things to other people more than he would to me, for example.
Yeah.
I worked with him on King Hedley II when he was in the room. But he told the director at that time, the late, great Marion McClinton, he said, looking at some section of the play that I was performing, he said, I would take that 8 times a week, which is like music to the ear of an actor, because we used to do 8 shows a week
Yes.
in the theater. Sometimes they still do, but those things got back to me. And he would ask questions, and we would talk, and I would sit outside and, on a break, and he would smoke a cigarette, and he would just tell these stories.
Mm-hmm.
Great storyteller. So that's
Did
how
I hear that
knew
you
him.
used to also go out and go on those smoke breaks? You weren't a smoker, but just
But
to
every
be
once in a
around
while,
him.
I would take, that's
Just to be in his presence.
just to be in the room with him,
Just
just to be
fake
outside
smoke.
of the room with him. Yeah, just to be there.
Yeah.
I knew he was important. I think we all knew that. I had the opportunity to meet him pretty early on, like in '87. I met him in '87.
Yeah.
Might have been early '88. I think early '88. But that said, he was sort of just coming onto the scene. He was at the Guthrie and all of these things, but he wasn't yet August. Well, he had a play on Broadway and all of these 2 plays at that point. But that said, he hadn't filtered out to the
Masses.
to the masses
Yeah.
yet. And he was still at the kind of early stages of his mastery. And so it was really cool to
Yeah, how
you know,
cool
get
for
to
you to
know
have
him.
witnessed that.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And now, of course, here we are. You're doing this brilliant performance. Music is also intersecting in this show, which is lovely. I got to say, as a Chicago native, I'm curious what it means for you to be able to showcase this kind of groundbreaking theater work right here in your own city, right?
Yes.
Give us some words of wisdom before I let you go for up-and-coming Chicago creatives and actors who might want to take a page from your book.
Well, I think the first, tomorrow we're honoring at the Goodman Theater the great Ernest Perry Jr., legendary Chicago actor, who from the time I started out in Chicago theater, he was a presence, and,
Yeah.
and I'm honored to be on the program. But that's, I guess, my takeaway and my advice is to get involved with the continuity, with the continuum, that there's a past that we can draw from, there's a present that is now more promising than ever before, and that there's a future. And so always be about the business of leaving something for the next generation of people to come behind. That is a story, this is a story that must be told. I'm in the process now really of trying to institutionalize this by building the Lily and Marcy Center for the Performing Arts.
Nice.
Where young people will be able to study
That's
really in the
wonderful.
hands of the masters and to be able to participate
Yeah.
in the building of this institution.
I love that. That is Chicago actor Harry Lennix. You can find him starring in August Wilson's autobiographical show, How I Learned What I Learned. It's at the Broadway Playhouse in Water Tower Place. Now, for more information and tickets, go to BroadwayInChicago.com. Harry Lennix, what a pleasure.
My own, Sasha. Thank you.
Thank you.